Another day, another jerk using the legal system to silence valid criticism by threatening to file or actually filing a lawsuit. Previously in this series, I've covered Kevin David versus CoffeeZilla for reporting on Kevin David's financial guru plagiarizing scam, Nicole Prouse versus me for reporting on what I thought were her bullying tactics, Lawrence Lessig versus the New York Times for reporting on his defense of taking money from Jeffrey Epstein, Richard Carrier versus pretty much anyone who's ever said that they think he's a creep, Ben Radford versus me for reporting on allegations that he sexually harassed someone, and of course, the classic, the British Chiropractic Association versus Simon Singh for his reporting on their lack of evidence for their treatments, a case that led directly to a successful campaign to modify English libel law to stop quacks from bankrupting people with frivolous lawsuits filed there. The law's not perfect, but it's getting better. I didn't get around to making a video on this next thing, but I did recently learn about the ongoing legal difficulties of Jordan Shanks Markavina, aka Friendly Jordies, an Australian YouTuber who makes videos exposing corruption in Australian politics. He's been particularly focused on John Barilaro, the now former Deputy Premier of New South Wales, who he called a corrupt con man who had siphoned funds from the local council and blackmailed councillors, according to his allegations. Barilaro successfully sued Friendly Jordies and Google for hosting the videos. He won $750,000 from Google and an apology from Friendly Jordies. Friendly Jordies has documented the difficulty that he had even getting served with the lawsuit and learning why exactly he was being sued, which did make me suddenly wonder how bad Australia is for defamation lawsuits. And so a new defamation lawsuit that I just learned about has made me realize that, yeah, Australia is really fucking bad at defamation law. Apparently, once England slightly improved their situation, that left Australia as the holder of the title Defamation Capital of the World. Congratulations. So this is about a complete and utter quack named Farah Augustine Bunch, aka Dr. Farah. She is suing another doctor, Dr. Adam Smith, in Australian courts because he criticized her for prescribing potatoes to cure cancer, among other things. Look, even though I constantly rail against the use of defamation cases to silence criticism, I accept that sometimes it's not quite black and white. Ironically, the DMCA takedowns and lawsuit threats I got from Nicole Prouse were because I begrudgingly admitted that the pseudoscientists who were suing her for defamation kind of seemed to have a good case. You know, sometimes things are complicated. But in my unprofessional, not a lawyer opinion, this is not one of those gray areas. Smith is a doctor who works in Australia. Thanks to his Filipino fiancé, he's become fluent in Tagalog. He and his fiancé noticed that social media was rife with medical misinformation targeted at Filipinos, with bogus products like oils that claim to treat paralysis and tuberculosis, things like that. So they started making videos in Tagalog, hoping to educate people and stop them from being taken advantage of. Dr. Farah lives here in the United States, but is one of the quacks targeting Filipinos. She also has business there. She has recommended garlic to treat cancer, chilies to treat heart attacks, and her own product, Boston Sea, to treat lymphoma and other medical conditions. So Smith and his fiancé made a few videos debunking her, which led to her filing a lawsuit in Australian courts claiming that those videos were defamatory. Unfortunately for Dr. Farah, Smith has shown what seems to be pretty unequivocal video evidence of her offering her products like fairy dust, which is magnesium, to treat things like cancer, as well as other disorders like shoulder pain.
There's a better way of treating cancer. You don't have to go through chemo, through radiation. You don't have to lose your hair. You don't have to burn because of radiation. There's a much safer, much wonderful way of treating cancer.
Right here, lahat, kapuso, kapamilya, kapatid, right here at Natural Medical Center.
Pag na-diagnose kang cancer, huwag kang maaning, huwag matataranta. Healable. Andito na yung Boston Sea. That's it. Ganun lang.
Usually these quacks are pretty clever about being careful about using words like cure or even cancer. But Dr. Farah doesn't seem to have any kind of concern in the videos I've seen online. In his response to the lawsuit, Smith says that he also has evidence that a woman with early-stage colon cancer went to Dr. Farah, who told her she actually had stage 4 breast cancer, but to treat it, she should blend a fresh potato with a clear liquid product, fashion it into a patch, and place the patch on lumps in her breast and armpit. According to Smith, the woman later died of secondary malignant neoplasm of the large colon and rectum, among other contributing factors, including breast malignancy. That's just one of several victims that Smith says support his point that Dr. Farah isn't just wrong, but dangerous. He's also supported by the US FDA, who shut down the Dr. Farah Bunch Natural Medical Center in the Philippines back in 2018 for selling unregistered health products to thousands of desperate patients, many of whom apparently had cancer. In 2021, the FDA gave her another warning that her websites and social media posts are in violation of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act because of a ridiculously long list of claims, like Boston Sea was demonstrated to be highly effective against numerous cancer cell lines, and micronutrients effectively control multiple steps in breast cancer, and vitamin C may combat cancer and ease cancer treatment. Now, I live in California, and while it's still incredibly stressful whenever I'm threatened with a defamation lawsuit, it's nice to know that we have strong anti-SLAPP laws here. SLAPP stands for Strategic Lawsuits Against Public Participation, meaning lawsuits that are meant to silence criticism. And an anti-SLAPP law is intended to stop them from bankrupting defendants. The Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press explains that to challenge a SLAPP suit in California, defendants must show that they are being sued for any act in furtherance of the person's right of petition or free speech under the United States Constitution or the California Constitution in connection with a public issue. If a judge decides that, yes, this is a blatant attempt to curb free speech, then they will throw out the lawsuit and force the plaintiff to pay any fees incurred by the defendant in answering that lawsuit. Australia, unfortunately, has very weak anti-SLAPP laws, along with other legislation that makes it very easy for people to file sometimes frivolous litigation that silences critics. For instance, even the UK now has a reportage defense that allows media outlets to report on potentially defamatory statements made by other people if the subject is in the public interest. Australia has no such defense. Australian law apparently also doesn't require that a plaintiff prove that the defendant's statement was false and that the defendant knew that the statement was false, something that is required everywhere here in the United States. Instead, the burden is entirely placed on the person defending themselves to prove that what they said was true and not defamatory, which is the exact opposite of the burden of proof that we all assume to be correct and good in criminal cases, which is innocent until proven guilty. For all of these reasons, this ridiculous lawsuit has utterly upended Smith's life. He and his fiancée have spent so much money on lawyers over the past 2 years that they've been unable to even afford their own wedding. And money aside, this kind of thing is just extremely stressful. As the case drags on, Smith now thinks that his costs could eventually reach $2 million, which seems like a ridiculous amount of money, but a case that just wrapped up in 2021 cost each side over $1 million, with a final judgment of only $280,000. So, no one won. The longer this all drags out, the more it's going to cost, and even if Smith wins, he has absolutely no guarantee of being made whole, and in fact, he probably won't. If that angers you, I suggest you do a few things. First, if you live in Australia, consider pestering your politicians to support real reform on defamation law and not reform like former Prime Minister Scott Morrison's attempt to make an anti-trolling law that actually would have made things worse somehow. And wherever you live, you can head over to Smith's GoFundMe to learn more, help him out, or you can just go to his YouTube and subscribe and watch his videos, show him a little bit of support. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you loved the video, please subscribe. And if you think the world could use more videos like this and you happen to have a few bucks laying around, head to patreon.com/Rebecca and join an awesome community of nerds like the people whose names you see on the screen right now. Thanks.